my dears, and welcome to another media representation ranking video, which we are making because these always go well every single time I make them. There are no technical difficulties. I don't forget where I am on my list. It always just goes fantastically, especially because I don't have a script. That is always the #1 move when it comes to Sydney and making videos. Anyway, so we're going to rank some autistic media representation because I have hit 150 reviews at this point, which is wild. It's gonna be a really great time. It's gonna be a wonderful time. And so, yeah, I just said the same thing twice in a row. I am once again going to be using the wall behind me as a makeshift green screen because I am too lazy to go out and actually purchase a green screen situation, or if I were to purchase one, set it up. So we're just not going to deal with that, which means it might not be beautiful the whole time, but it's the thought that counts, and that's really what matters here. So let's talk about the categories that we have going on. So the categories that we have. The top category is the red one, and it is titled Go Now. This is something that I reviewed and that I still think about on the regular / have seen several times since then, or read several times since then. And it's important to me, and so I need you to go check it out immediately. It's very important. The next one down after that is No Notes. This is something that was good. It was very good. I enjoyed it. Maybe it's not something I think about every single day, but it was still important to me. I still really enjoyed it. Whatever. Below that we have No Notes Kids Edition. This is below the No Notes category because kids representation and like teen representation tend to do a better job with representation overall by far than adult or general representation tends to, so I'm assuming it's easier. It's not, but I'm assuming that it is, so it goes below that. That's the same thing. It's the same thing as No Notes. It's just for children and young people. Below that we have Buttered Noodles. This is something that it's the same food. It feels good. It's comforting. You can enjoy it every once in a while, but it doesn't have a lot of protein. It doesn't have a lot of meat to it. It's just a comfort food, you know? It's just there and we love it. Below that we have Well, which is the blue category. This is directly titled based on what I say when people ask me how do you feel about Atypical, which is well, that's that. So this is the category of you know, it's a good media but it's bad representation, or it's a bad movie but I liked how they did the representation, or it's historically important, like it didn't age well but I appreciate it for what it was, for example. I do want to touch on something I just said. I did say bad representation. I want to be clear on that. I don't actually think there's such thing as bad representation. I think there's harmful representation, but bad representation that's a metric that has a lot of opinion and subjectivity in it, and I don't think that is necessarily a fair thing to say. So I always very much believe that you can have harmful representation and you can have other representation, and those are kind of the options. So yeah, anyway, great. And then the last one is Borderline Hate Crime. That one should be pretty self-explanatory. And we're going to be going through reviews. Well, I said in the title it's going to be review 100 through 150. That's actually a bit of a lie, because last time I made one of these, we were in the middle of the strike, of the writer's strike, and so there were a bunch of things I couldn't review. So reviews 91 through 95 had to be on hold, and so the last one I reviewed until review 105, and then figured out to add these into this one. So we're going to be a little bit out of order today, but that's half the fun. So yeah, great. I think that's all the things. If you want to actually learn about media representation, watch my review series, which I have linked in the description for you. I also have the request form for that linked in the description for you if you want to check that out. I guarantee you that is going to be more helpful than whatever I say in this video, because I'm intelligent when I think about my words in advance, which is just not what's happening here. Great. So let us begin. The first one that we have is the Gallagher Girls series. There is a character whose name is Liz, and she's very autistic coded. The series is about a bunch of high schoolers who are at a spy school, and they're all girls and they're doing spy lady stuff, and it's so good. I love the series so much. I read like 2 of the books in middle school, and then I didn't read any others, but then I revisited them last summer and I was like, wow, these are incredible. Also, when I posted this review, the author of it messaged me and thanked me, and I was like, oh, hi, she was so nice. That was wonderful. So anyway, this is going to go into No Notes Kids Edition because it's fantastic, and you should go read these books as an adult, frankly. They're awesome. I really enjoy them. Next is Crafting Curious. Now, I would put this in Go Now, but I made it, and that feels a little bit wrong. So we're going to put it into No Notes. In case you don't know, Crafting Curious is a documentary that is for free on this here YouTube channel. It is made by yours truly. And it is about the creation of my undergrad thesis, which was the first all Nerdy Virgin cast and crew production of The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, and how we attempted to do that production, and then how it got effectively sabotaged due to institutionalized ableism at my college, and we filmed the whole thing and we put it into a documentary for you, and it's one of the proudest things that I've ever made. I'm by no means a filmmaker, but I'm really proud of it. I'm proud of what we did that is in that video, and I'm also proud of how I edited it. So you should go check it out if you haven't seen it yet, because it's fun. And also we have an epilogue to it now. That's new. Anyway, I reviewed it because a bunch of people were telling me to review it, and I was like, I'm not going to do that, but then I decided why not, even though self-promotion is disgusting and I hate it. Next, we have Little Bird. This is going into No Notes Kids Edition. This is a children's book, but it's also a song, and it's about a penguin and a family of sparrows, I think, who thinks that he's like a lazy sparrow because he can't fly, and he's a bad sparrow for all these various reasons, but then he learns that he's a penguin and he's able to find other penguins and they all go sledding together. It's really wholesome and good, and I love it, and I highly recommend it, and it's really cute. Great. Next we have Ian's Walk. This is going straight into borderline hate crime. This is a children's book about two sisters and then their little brother whose name is Ian, and they like go on a walk with him, and he keeps trying to like stim, wants to stop and look at things, is being a child, is being an autistic child, but also is being a child. And they're like, no, you can't do that. That's embarrassing, blah, 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 blah. And they keep telling him that he can't do those things. And then he ends up getting distressed and eloping, which is when an autistic person runs off. And then after they are really stressed because they're like, we lost our brother, then they find him, and then they're like, okay, I guess you can do the things that you want to do because we're scared of you running away again, which isn't really the message that I think should have been the message. It shouldn't be we should let them be autistic because otherwise they're gonna leave, but instead we should let them be themselves because they deserve to. It's not my favorite. It's from the 90s, so like I'm gonna give them a little bit of, you know, I guess maybe that was fine historically then, but I didn't enjoy it. Great. Next is Nathan Pyle's Strange Planet. Just like as a general thing, I know I need to review the show, but that involves watching the show, which I just haven't gotten around to yet. I'm putting it to Butter Noodles because it's fine. I don't know. It's not like my favorite thing in the entire world, but I do enjoy its use of neurodivergent speech patterns without realizing it's using neurodivergent speech patterns. I think that's really cool, and it was a really fun review to make because that was something I haven't spoken about in my review series yet. Because I have a video about it, which I'll link above, but I've never talked about it in the review series. So I always enjoy when I have something that I can talk about something new with. That's always interesting to me because sometimes I review things and it's like the same review over and over again, and that one was intellectually stimulating for me, but it's not like my favorite thing in the entire world. I don't know. Next we have Mad at School. This is a textbook or an academic book by Margaret Price, the woman, the myth, the legend. I'm gonna put it straight into Go Now. I know that academic texts are not necessarily feel accessible to everybody, but I highly recommend checking this one out. It is one of my favorite texts that I read for my thesis. Also, Margaret Price coined the term body mind. She's cool. She's really cool. But you should read this book. It's about mental disability in educational settings, and particularly not just how it impacts the students and how discrimination impacts the students and the student experience as a learner, but also how it impacts the teachers and how we don't let teachers be disabled, and we've created a system where it's almost impossible for them to be. And it's just really impactful and important and meant a lot to me when I first read it, and it's a very important core piece of my research and my work as a person, so I always recommend it to anybody who's interested in that kind of stuff. The next one we have is Show Us Who You Are. This is another Elle McNichol book. I've reviewed Kind of Spark before. I will be reviewing it again somewhere at the end of this, I think. I'm gonna put this into No Notes Kids Edition. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really good. It particularly had the, like, if I remember correctly, the autistic and the ADHD or best friend situation, which I always love to see where that's in media. It was a good time. I don't have a lot of other notes really. It talked about eugenics in a way that was age appropriate, which I really appreciated, and in a way that kids can understand, but kind of distanced from our reality a little bit, which I think is important, specifically for young people learning about stuff like that. Next we have Why Johnny Doesn't Flap, NT is Okay. This is one of my favorite things that I've ever read. It's going straight into the Go Now category. This is a children's book that it uses the format and like the weirdly derogatory aspects of the books about autistic kids that are like, well, this kid does this because he's autistic, and so that's why he flaps his hands. But it's in the reverse. So it's like, this kid is weird. He doesn't flap his hands. He has a hard time being on time, like precisely on time. Like it makes fun of how we talk about these things in media, and it's just so funny, and I love it so much. So you should go read it because it's great. Next is Ramona Quimby. She's going to No Notes Kids Edition. Also a fun review to go back to, because she is absolutely very much autistic, honestly ADHD coded, and meant a lot to me growing up without me really realizing why she meant a lot to me. And yeah, I just really love those books. If you didn't grow up on those books, you should check them out. Specifically, the audiobooks for most of them are they're narrated by Stockard Channing, if I remember correctly. I used to have a boombox in my room, and I would put in my CDs, and I would listen to the Ramona Quimby audiobooks growing up while I would like build things on the floor of my room. It was a good time. Next is My Brother Charlie. I'm gonna put this into Well. I wanted to like it, particularly because we don't get literature specifically for kids that has autistic people of color specifically, and so I really was rooting for this book. But it has a very strong energy of like, the words are locked in him, and like, he has autism, but autism doesn't have him, and the family just kind of like lightly gaslighting itself into being okay with him being different rather than being genuinely okay with him being different, which I understand is a part of like the grieving process that some people go through, and it is normal to have one expectation of what your kid is going to be and get a different thing, and you know, have to process that, but that grieving process maybe doesn't need to be in books for children. You know, I have complicated feelings on this one, so it's complicated. Our next review is Elf, which is a movie, and it's gonna go straight into Well because I have some emotional attachment to it, I guess, because we watched it on like the last day of school before Christmas break for all of elementary school. I can't get through this movie as an adult. I can't do it. It's so hard. But it was a fun thing to review, I guess. It was a fun thing to talk about. I think I got a lot of engagement on this one in particular, so you know, that's a win. But I don't really like the movie that much. Everybody did great with their performances. It's a kind of humor that's not my thing. After that, we have, of course, The Polar Express. This is gonna go straight into Borderline Hate Crime solely for the animation style. That should be self-explanatory. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is also going into Borderline Hate Crime because how is that movie watchable? That was awful. I really struggled. I ended up watching it at like 1.5 speed, and then I went up to 2 speed, and I was still struggling to get through the entire thing, but I have a duty as a reviewer, and so I did my job. Hated it. 0 out of 10. Great. Next we have Parks and Rec. It's not next in the pile though. Where are you? Hello? There she is. Parks and Rec is going to go up to No Notes. I mean, this is another situation where it's a comedy and they use comedic archetypes in a way that often looks like autistic coding but isn't actually autism. But the show's fine and whatever. Great. Mozart and the Whale. Why do these all upload out of order? This section uploaded out of order. This is so upsetting. Oh, because this is when, Parks and Rec is when the strike ended, and so I went back. Well, the strike ended right before December, so I did my December reviews as Christmas movies as planned, and then I went back to 91, and that's why they uploaded out of order, because the files are a different, yeah. Mozart and the Whale is also going into Borderline Hate Crime. This is an interesting film because it took the manic pixie dream girl trope and it turned it into actual disability as it's meant to be. Amazing. Check. Thumbs up. But then it did that in a way that like implied that this super abusive relationship between the two of them is the only kind of relationship that autistic people can have, and actually this is what love between two autistic people can look like. And I was like, no, that's just abuse and it's bad and we shouldn't be promoting that, especially for autistic people as representation, because if the only representation of a romantic relationship you've ever seen of autistic people together is an abusive one, and the narrative is telling you that this is positive and this is cute and all of these things, that's a problem, right? That becomes dangerous. Nope, 0 out of 10. Next we have Mr. Holland's Opus. I didn't like this movie, but I'm going to put it in, we're going to put it into unwell because the representation is actually really good. I just didn't like the movie. Particularly because Mr. Holland is an absolute creep and he's not nice. But I enjoyed this, like, undiagnosed toxic dad energy that is that was Mr. Holland. I think it encapsulated that really well. But again, the movie is, I don't particularly enjoy it. Gravity Falls. Gravity Falls is gonna go into No Notes Kids Edition because is it really for children? That is debatable, and I really can't tell you where I stand on that. But it was on Disney Channel, I think. Right? It was on Disney Channel? That was right at the end of when I was into Disney Channel, so I could be wrong on that. But I'm gonna put it into No Notes Kids Edition. It's great. It's one of those situations where I wouldn't say the specific character generated version, but rather the entire world is. But like, if you want to perceive them in that way, you can do whatever the heck you want. Enjoy. Monster High, specifically Twyla, who is played by Kayla Cromer, who is actually autistic. I'm gonna go into No Notes Kids Edition as well. Really great. I really enjoy this representation a lot. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Great. Now we're back to the 100s numbers. The Imitation Game. I watched this because I was making an unrelated video, and then I decided to review it anyway. Alan Turing historically was autistic, we know this, and I think that he's really cool. I think that the way that they portrayed that in the film was really well done, albeit a little bit stereotypical, but that's also just how Benedict Cumberbatch plays nerdy characters, so, you know. Yeah, it's a good film. I really enjoyed it. I will be going back. Is it historically accurate? No. Not really at all. But if you divorce it from the reality that it's supposed to be representing, it's a really fun time, and it's a very well written film, so I enjoyed it. Yeah. Next we have Percy Jackson. Whether I was referring to the show or the books or the in general intellectual property, I don't even know, and I didn't know when I was making the review. But I did watch the show when I made the review. Anyway, I am putting it into No Notes Kids Edition. The show was incredible, and some people have arguments about it being less accurate to the book, but this Rick Riordan is one of the screenwriters. He knows what he's doing. I would argue that this is his next iteration of what he wanted this piece to look like. So I am totally happy with whatever he decides to do with it. I love how disability is used in this world building, and I think it's really fantastic, particularly because he wrote these stories for his disabled son, which I think is an important tidbit. So yeah, love it, amazing. It didn't go into Go Now, probably because I had too many things in Go Now, might be the only reason it didn't find its way up there, but yeah, really good IP. I love Rick Riordan, he's amazing. Particularly for his ability to make kids interested in very high concept, historical, sociological, anthropological concepts. That's really cool, and I respect anybody who can do that. Next we have The Great Gatsby. I hate this story. So it's going into Buttered Noodles. I think the representation is very interesting if you look at it as representation. Particularly the main point of my review of the book was about how in English classes growing up, everybody was looking at all of these clues that Gatsby was clearly a bootlegger and being creepy and a con man and hiding things, and I was reading them as like, oh, he's just like me. Like, I totally didn't realize that was a literary purpose to show that he was creepy, and I just read it as autistic coding, which I think is really interesting, and it honestly can be looked at both ways, and depending on the adaptation you look at, which I've unfortunately watched all 15 is too many, some of them handle it different ways, which I think is really interesting and really cool. I didn't realize how much I dislike it because I assumed that if I'd watched 15 adaptations that I must have liked it in the past, even though I'm now remembering that I hated every single adaptation that I watched while I was doing it. I went to see Gatsby on Broadway, and halfway through the second number, I'm sitting there and I'm going, they're doing a good job. I hate this story and I want to punch all these characters. And then I just really had a hard time getting through the rest of the show. I did it, but I struggled because I don't like it. So sorry F. Scott Fitzgerald, but also he was really terrible. So, you know, there's also that. I don't think, whatever. All right. Bluey is the next one. Going from Gatsby to Bluey is such an interesting choice. Why did I do that? Bluey is the next one. Here's the thing. We're putting it to No Notes Kids Edition. Were either the characters that the people gave me as being autistic? No, they were not. One of them was ADHD, and I think that was a really good representation. It was handled really well. And I think the deaf representation that people thought was nonverbal autistic was also handled very well. And the show is an autistic classic anyway to begin with. And the amount of Bluey stuff that is around this apartment is so much. And you don't see that because you don't see around my apartment, but we have like a stuffed animal hanging over there. We have little figurines over there. We have ornaments for the Christmas tree. I have coloring pages of all of my friends as Bluey characters somewhere. Next is Nimona. This is going into no notes. I guess it could go into no notes kids edition, but we're gonna put it straight into no notes. I thought about putting it in the Go Now category. I ended up not doing that. But it's really split in between those two. You should go check out this movie. It's on Netflix. The cast is fantastic. The performances are fantastic. The storytelling is beautiful. It's just a really well-made film, and I highly recommend it. And it's like a feel-good film about like difference, and it utilizes a lot of disability language in a way that it seems like it's aware of what it was doing, but it wanted to make it historically accurate for the world that it was building, which I think is so fascinating and so interesting. And yeah, it's just a fantastic movie, so go watch it. After this is The Chosen. I'm gonna put it into Buttered Noodles. I'm not one for religious shows. That's not really my jam. I do think that this specific religious show did a lot for the like unpacking of religious trauma for me. So if that's a thing for you, this might be a show to check out. The whole first season is on like 6 different streaming platforms, so you can find it. You can track it down. One of the characters who wrote one of the books of the Bible, and I'm not going to say anything specific because I don't remember anything about how that works right now. He wrote his section of the Bible in a very specific way that could dramaturgically be understood as potentially being an autistic view of seeing the world. And so they decided to flesh that out and turn him into an autistic character in this retelling of the Bible. And I think that was so cool and so interesting, and brings in so many theological questions about, and historical questions as well. And I just think it's such an interesting, wonderful concept, and I think it was executed really well. I'm not putting it any higher than Butter Noodles because it's not my jam. I'm not going to sit down and watch this whole show. But I thought it was really well done for what it was doing. The next one is Poor Things. We're going straight into borderline hate crime. People were angry about my review for this. Like, angry. I got, like, hate messages and stuff, and I was like, okay, y'all need to calm down. The summary of my review of this is, if you're going to use disability aesthetics, you should be hiring disabled people and or paying disabled people and or acknowledging that you are using disability aesthetics to make a profit to tell a specific story. I know that she's not technically disabled, but she is technically disabled because of how she's portrayed, because of what actually the scenario is going on. Yes, her technical disability isn't a real thing because we don't do brain transplants, but it's enough of a real thing that, and she's using specific disability aesthetics to be quirky and interesting, and that just really set me off. And also the way they handled sex and sexuality in this film was not my favorite, especially when you're looking at it through a disability lens. So yeah, sorry, you're not, the borderline hate crime, that's where it's staying. My camera's gonna die, stand by. Next is Back to the Future. This is going into Unwell. I don't like this movie. But the representation is good in the sense that it's like this stereotypical absent-minded professor, and it's a fun time. I did the most theater kid thing, which is I went to see the musical first, and then I was like, I wonder how it compares to the movie. Rather than doing it the other way around. The musical did its best. I don't like the source material, so that's what I have to say about that. Next is Abbott Elementary. This is going into no notes, but this one also almost went into Go Now. The show's really great. Again, it uses the sitcom tropes of neurodivergence and neurodivergence coding as a way to create comedy. So, you know, I think if any of the sitcoms I've reviewed could get away with turning one of the characters actually diagnosed as autistic, I think this is the one that could do it and could handle it very well. They have the best framework set up for that to be possible. So I don't know. It's just a well-written show, and I really enjoyed it. And also just like from a teacher perspective, so good. Next is I Am Sam. This one's also going into no notes. This was quite the surprise. I was so nervous about this movie. It's old. It centers a developmentally and intellectually disabled character. Who's also played by a non-disabled person. And I was like, oh god, where is this gonna go? And it talks about like the issues with the justice system and custody battles, and how we have double standards for parents and what being a fit parent actually is and how that directly negatively impacts minority people. And I think it handled the nuances of that conversation really beautifully. It was just, I was genuinely quite moved by this film and surprised by how well it handled things. And I would actually recommend it, oddly enough. That was a big surprise. So I, again, almost put that in the Go Now category because I am still thinking about it. But I'm not gonna do that. Great. Next is Fire Island. This one's going to Go Now. This is one of my favorite movies. Thank you to my roommate for forcing me to watch it. Bless you, you're a legend. This is a retelling of Pride and Prejudice, but it's gay. That's it. That's all I have to say about it, really. My review talked about Pride and Prejudice as a general concept because Mr. Darcy is always autistic coded, and objectively a lot of the other characters are also autistic coded. But yeah, this is such a fun film. It's on Hulu. Go watch it. It's starring Bowen Yang. Also, Conrad Rickamore is in it. It's just really good. Go watch it. It's such a fun, funky film. It's so silly, and it's so clever in how it adapts the story of Pride and Prejudice. It handles it really well, and I just really enjoyed it. Next, we have Ted Lasso. This is also going to Go Now. I've rewatched this whole thing twice now. That show... Yeah. That's all I have to say about that, really. Do I think any of the characters are autistic? No, I don't. I still stand by that. With the exception of Barbara, is that her name? Like, I guess she is, but everybody else who I was asked to review, I was like, no. But that show means a lot to me, and it's really well written, and you should really check it out. It really makes you question a lot about masculinity and about feelings and about how our world functions and treats people and treats how we feel emotions and how we communicate with people and how we connect with people. And it's just kind of like about kindness and love, but in a nuanced, in-depth way. Yeah, this is a really healing, good, lovely show, and you should watch it. Next, we have Truthfully Yours. This is a romance novel that came out just a couple months ago, and I once again want to shout it out because it's so good. Autistic main character, living her best life, falls in love with somebody. So well written, such a fun time. It's a little spicy, not super spicy. There's just like 2 spice scenes, so it's like it's a good, tasteful amount of spice. Really good book. Highly recommend. Go read it. Next, we have Good Omens. This would have gone into Buttered Noodles, but given historical recent events, it's going to Umwell. I didn't like the show very much, but it's not my genre, so that's totally on me. I don't think any of the characters are autistic. I think the world is autistic, and Neil Gaiman came out as autistic like literally a day before I published my review, and I got to add that in, which is really nice. But also he did other things. So anyway, moving on. Next is A Friend for Henry. This one's going into Umwell. I think that I was unfair in my review of this book initially, and I do think that I wasn't as... This is a review that I wrote 3 or 4 months before I ended up actually making it and posting it, because it was just like on my pile of things to review, and I kind of look at media differently now than what I did when I wrote it, and I still published it anyway, and then afterwards I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. Anyway, this is a children's book about a kid who has a really hard time making friends, and he like really struggles to connect with people in a way that could be autism, it could be anxiety, it's never really specified, and frankly doesn't need to be. Also could be PTSD. And so eventually he's able to find a kid in his class that he does connect with, which I thought was important, but it's also like written kind of for preschoolers. And that early in preschool, I personally, from a teacher's perspective, didn't really see those kind of scenarios happening. Those scenarios kind of happen in kindergarten and first grade. So for me, I was like, if I had this read to me when I was that little, that would make me more scared about going to preschool. But if I had read it later in life, it would have been helpful. But if you're reading it later in life, it's a younger book. So then I just felt complicated about it. So it's going to go into the Unwell category. I'm still conflicted about it. Next, we have Brooklyn Nine-Nine. This one's also going into Unwell. I think the autism in it, which is not actually autism, let's be real with ourselves, it's the sitcom thing we've talked about several different times, is fine. Oh wait, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is not the other one I was thinking of. Oh. Yeah. Okay, I'll move it up into Buttered Noodles. Again, I don't think it's autism. So, I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. It's not my favorite genre. But then Parks and Rec is so similar. I honestly like Brooklyn Nine-Nine better than I like Parks and Rec. What if we do a switcheroo? We're gonna do a switcheroo. Okay, great. This is going up into No Notes, and Parks and Rec is going into Buttered Noodles. Sorry. Great. Okay, good talk. Next we have Spider-Man. Spider-Man's going into Buttered Noodles. I also don't think he's autistic, but I think he uses autistic coding, and I think my review of this was really interesting, and it was a really fun conversation. And I love reviewing things when it's a fun conversation, but I'm not going to put it higher because it's not autism. But I really enjoyed getting into the Spider-Man movies, so thank you for doing that to me. I had a good time. I watched all of them in like 2 days. It was a problem. Next is Heartstopper. Going into Go Now. New season coming out very soon. Very excited about it. I love this show. I ended up buying the book at a used bookstore because it was cheap, and I was like, great. I love reading the book. There's obviously more books I do need to read, but I'm not going to read comics online, and I'm not going to buy the whole series because it'll take me like 2 minutes to actually read through the whole thing, and then that's just extra books, and I already have a pile of books on my floor because my bookshelf is too full. So anyway, really great. Go watch it if you haven't already. Good comfort show. Highly recommend it. Also, very funny. Another theater kid thing where I did all my Sweeney research and I saw Joe Locke as Tobias twice. And so I start watching Heartstopper and my brain did like oh, that's the guy from Sweeney Todd. And I was like, oh no, it's the other. Yeah, okay. Heartbreak High is after this. It's going into No Notes. It's not going into Go Now because I don't enjoy this show as much because it just deals with like a lot of triggering things in ways that I don't think it necessarily need to be in there. But I think, what's her character's name? What is Chloe's character's name? Oh my gosh. Whatever. Quinny! There we go. Got it. It just appeared out of the universe. Quinny's character has a really interesting arc in season 2. Yeah, and I think they handled it really interestingly, and I thought it was cool. I think they could have handled it a little bit better with what they did. There could have been a little bit more discussion within it about what was going on, but they might wrap that up in season 3. I kind of hope that they do. I think after seeing how the audience responded to it, I think they're going to handle it a little bit better in season 3. So yeah. Amazing. Next we have Reed from Criminal Minds. This is going to go into... By the way, we're almost done. We're so close. This is going to go into Buttered Noodles. This show has a very interesting way of acting like it is being socially conscious of mental disability issues because it's being like, we're humanizing the mental disability of these criminals, but it does it in a way that implies that mental disability is a cause of criminality. So like, even though Reed is really good representation, I have a hard time giving it like positive review for the overall show because of what it stands for and what it does. And particularly after watching like 4 episodes back to back, I could feel myself becoming like more distrusting of other people and like scared of my surroundings, and like I didn't like that. I didn't like that I felt that in real time, and that if I had watched this show when I was 13, I wouldn't have realized I was feeling that in real time, and it would have made my anxiety significantly higher. So it's just not my favorite thing in the world. Next we have Ezra. This came out in theaters a few months ago. It's going into borderline hate crime. I'm honestly just going to link my review of it above because it's not worth my energy explaining why this is such an issue of film. Beyond, if this had come out in 2005, I would have given it an okay review. But we're in 2024, and so it's a problem. Next we have Something to Be Proud Of. This one is going straight into the Go Now category. This is a new book that recently came out. It is about like intersectional activism and pride from the point of view of an autistic main character, and it is really great, and it is one of very few pieces that I've ever seen that shows a full, like, this is what an interabled friend group looks like. And it felt like what my friend groups look like and what my community looks like and what community organizing and activism actually looks like as well. And it was just a really beautifully written thing. And you really should go check it out because I tore through this book. It felt like it was just like alive. I could see everything from it, and it was just wonderful. So please go read this book. Next we have Dear Evan Hansen, the novel. I hate to put this in no notes, and I hated to say that when I was reviewing it as well, but the book is actually very well written and handles all the situations that are very bad from the musical very nicely. I have a deep dive into Dear Evan Hansen as a musical that I will link up here if you want to check it out. But I had to read this book as part of the deep dive, and I learned a ton, and I really enjoyed it as its own separate text from what the rest of everything else is. I think the rest of the everything else aged really terribly, and I think this book is actually pretty solid and can continue to age well because of how it handled the complications of the situation at hand. So I would genuinely recommend it as pretty good undiagnosed autistic point of view representation. It gives energy, like Extremely Loud, Incredibly Close, like Curious Incident. It's kind of that kind of autism voice, but a little bit aged up, which we don't have a lot of, and that specific type of linguistic style, while it is a little bit tired, has an important piece of my heart, and it feels very comforting, and it's just a good read. Next we have Criminal Minds, the Coda episode. Again, same thing that I just said about Criminal Minds is a general show, but this episode in particular is very interesting because it shows off the traditional filming styles and editing styles we typically use to denote autism in media historically, in a very clear-cut way, and I now use it as an example for things for people forever. The House episode that came out right around the same era does the exact same thing. If you know which one I'm talking about, you know which one I'm talking about. It's the one with the worms, the eyeball worms, I think it is. He's like eating the worms in the sandbox. Anyway, so I think he handled it really well, but again, I don't like the show. I ethically feel a little wonky about. Next is Lessons in Chemistry. This one is going straight into the Go Now category. I'm still thinking about this show. I'm still thinking about this book. It very much changed my world outlook in a very positive and helpful way, and is something that if I had a therapist, I would bring into my therapist to talk about. Go read it. Go watch the show. It's all fantastic. The show and the book have slightly different angles that they're going towards, but they both have the same general vibe in a very beautiful way, and I think that they both complement each other as sort of identical but sort of separate pieces of work. So go check them both out. Last couple, 6 I think. Yeah, I know how to count. Last couple. No, it's last 7 because that's how numbers work. Amazing. The next is The Good Place. The Good Place is going to go into Buttered Noodles. I thought the show was really genius, really well written, really well handled. I really enjoyed it. And so I feel bad putting it into Buttered Noodles. We're going to put it straight up into No Notes. Yeah. Oh, that's it. That's all I have to say about that, really. It kind of sparked season 2. We're going to go into No Notes Kids Edition. I've never seen a chaos autistic in media before. And I respect that they did that. And I appreciate that they did that. And they handled it with the nuance and love, care that it deserved. The show always is, for me, it feels a little bit aged down, which is what it's supposed to be. Like, I feel like, oh, if I'd had this in middle school, this would have been my whole personality. And it doesn't, it feels a little, like, polished for me now as an adult. But I still really enjoy it regardless. Next we have Bottoms. Bottoms is going into the No Notes category. Bottoms is such a fun time. It's a very silly, goofy movie. I don't know why I said that like that. But it's a good movie. I don't have a lot to say about it, and I didn't have a lot to say in my review about it either because I was having so much fun and laughing so hard that I forgot to take notes, which is a reason to go watch it. Last 4! Josh, we're so close! Next is Bridgerton. Bridgerton is going into Buttered Noodles because I have a complicated relationship with this intellectual property. But I think the things that they did with autistic coding that I got to talk about in season 3 were really interesting, and I enjoyed talking about it, so that's why it's there. And I enjoy watching it. Is it kind of garbage? Yes. Is it well-produced garbage? Oh, absolutely. So I will give it that. Fleabag is next. It's going to Buttered Noodles. This show is not necessarily for me, and I have had so many people tell me throughout my entire life, you're going to love the show, you have to watch the show, you have to watch the show, and it's making me realize how many friends I had that didn't actually know anything about me, because why would I like the show? Anyway, I didn't really like it. It's also not autism, but if that's your kind of humor, you're gonna love it. And it does bring up some interesting, like, specifically season 2 has some interesting, like, theological questions and, like, questions about humanity and humanhood, which, again, this is a really fun review to write. It was a really interesting thing to get to talk about, but it's not autism, so it's not gonna go higher in the list. Next we have Has Been Hotel. This is going into No Notes. Also not super in the target audience for this, but the writing is fantastic. The show is fantastic. It's also not really autism. It's much like Good Omens. It's a neurodivergent world to make them all feel detached from our world, rather than having individually neurodivergent characters. But I don't necessarily think that that's a negative thing. Yeah, if you're into that show, go watch it. I feel like everybody who's going to be into that show is already watching that show, so I don't really need to advertise that to you. And the very last one that I have is Geek Girl, which is going into No Notes. Nope, it's going to Go Now. I put it into the category and I call it a different one. It's going to Go Now. Geek Girl has altered everything in my brain. It's so good. It's such a great time. It's such a well-written show, and particularly captures that complicated nuance of growing up undiagnosed, but having everybody around you know and treat you like you're a disabled person without giving you the ability to understand why you're being treated that way, or have that language for yourself. And so in specific settings, you are completely accommodated, and in other settings, you hate yourself and you don't know why. And I think that's a very unique experience that it captured perfectly. And also, the costumes are gorgeous, the sets are gorgeous, the filming, it's just beautiful, beautiful show. And I'm looking forward to future seasons of it, and I have already watched it through thrice, because it's just really good. But anyway, that's my list for today. I managed to do this in a fairly reasonable time frame, but those are my opinions, my rankings of the ones that I reviewed, the last 50 that I reviewed, and I will catch you guys after the next 50. Am I getting anywhere close on disability yet at this point? I don't think that I am. But yeah. Anyway, that's all that I have for you today. I hope that you learned something. I hope that I've given you some recommendations to go check out. If you want more of these as they're happening, obviously I have my review series. It comes out twice a week. Will it become less than twice a week in the future? Probably. I'm starting to have a hard time reviewing 9 things in 1 month every month. But right now it's twice a week. I do 1 autism review a week and 1 disability review a week. On TikTok, on Instagram, also on Shorts on here. So go check those out if you want. I also have longer deep dives into various things, which I'll link below as well, if meta-analysis is your interest. I always enjoy doing these things. I learned a lot. I hope that you guys learn a lot. And yeah, I'm not gonna do my regular sign out because that feels weird for the style of video, but I will see you, my dear, in the next one.